Hey everyone, Mario again, coming at you with another video. As you can tell from up there, it is another entry in childhood favorites. And the title of today's film is kind of weird for that entry, but believe it or not, I did first see this film as a kid and I enjoyed it. Revisited it twice recently, and I have to say I still enjoy it, though, it kind of has not aged as well as, other films that I liked as a kid, but I'll say it's still a good time waster of a film. With what the film is and how much it costs, which according to IMDb it costs about 35 million, you could classify this under the title of B movie with a large budget. And of course, the film I'm talking about is Species. The film came out in 1995 and it was directed by Roger Donaldson, who, other than Species, he's best known for Dante's Peak and more recently November Man. The film was written by Dennis Feldman. Other than this film series, the only other film he's really known for, at least from the writing aspect, is The Golden Child. The film stars Natasha Henstridge, if I pronounced that correctly, Michael Madsen, Ben Kingsley, Alfred Molina, Forrest Whitaker, Marg Helgenberger, excuse me, and we even got Michelle Williams in a small role earlier in her career, though with how she looks now as an adult and how she looked then, it's kind of hard to tell that's her. I was like, Michelle Williams was in this? And then only now I realized who she played. She played the younger version of Natasha's character. Now, the plot of the film is that decades before the film takes place, NASA sent out a radio message to who, as Ben Kingsley's character puts it, to whoever might be listening, with important stuff like stats of how many people are on the Earth and other stuff like that. And then they received a message back about 2 decades later, give or take, and in the message is a code of DNA with instructions on how to combine it with human DNA. Well, being the curious critters that we humans are, in addition to this bird, they decide to combine the DNAs, and we get Syl, our title creature. Well, they let her grow for a few months, but then, the big wig starts getting a little weary when they start to see weird stuff, like one night when she has a nightmare, something weird happens. So they decide to terminate her, and that's where the film starts, with them trying to gas her with cyanide gas. She escapes, and, since she is half human and half alien, they have to find her, presumably dead, preferably dead, so they assemble a team of special agents, Madsen and all their characters. Each of them are specialists in a certain field. Like Whitaker's character, from the way he talks and all that, it seems like he has psychic powers. It's not like psychic powers where he could see or do anything. He just gets intuitions and feelings. But the way that they kind of make it sound like he does have psychic powers, at least to an extent. And then Molina's character, he's a doctor, as is Helgenberger's character. Madsen's character, he's kind of he's like a bounty hunter. They never specifically state exactly what his profession is, but there's enough hints given that he's kind of like a bounty hunter, but I'd say more along the lines of a mercenary. But he's one of those guys that the government would contact for a situation like this, or even lower level ones like high class terrorists escape, stuff of that nature. Well, they're given their mission and they have to track her down. But the bad thing is, before they could find the first clue, Syl, our title alien, molts into an adult, and now they have to try to find her before she can mate, which that's her goal to complete her life cycle, which would be mating. And the film is them trying to find her before she can mate, a couple close calls, and then in the end they have to defeat her and her offspring, and that's the whole point of the film. I guess you could tell right away from the plot synopsis I've given that it definitely does deserve the title B movie with a large budget. But that doesn't necessarily mean the film is bad. It's just not a film you're going to see winning Oscars, or except for maybe like the technical achievements. But what makes that even weirder is that we have an Oscar winner in the film, Ben Kingsley. This is the first film I saw Ben in, so I didn't really, know at the time he had won an Oscar for acting. I didn't really place a lot of emphasis on stuff like that when I was younger. Oh, the joys of youth, if you think about it in a way. This be my introduction to him. Saw him in later films, and then I started to appreciate him more. But in retrospect, going back and rewatching it, it's like, I wonder why he did this film. Makes me wonder if he did it because he needed the money, or because he wanted to play a character like this, and this is his first opportunity to do. You can tell he's having some fun with the role. mean, it's not as deep as other roles he's played. I mean, even the Mandarin character he played in Iron Man 3 had more depth to him than the character he plays here, but he looks like he's having some fun with it. Might be a combination of those two theories, though. Michael Madsen also seems like he's having some fun in the role. He doesn't go over the top. He's all subtle in his acting. He does have some moments like he has one of the best lines in the movie. What should we tell him? Yeah, tell him he's about to copulate with a creature from outer space, and laughs with it. That's a little funny moment because it's like, who would believe that if you were told it? Maybe Harley, but he's a bird. The rest of the cast, Whitaker, he does a good job for what little he has to do. I mean, he sells a lot of his performance very well, especially when he comes face to face with Syl in one moment, and then when he suspects Syl is near the end of the film. Molina, he does a good job. I like some of his later roles better, but he does a good job for what little he has to do with his character. And the cast does have a good rapport with one another. You buy these guys as people who are not really friends before all this happens, but because they're brought together and they're working together, they become, I wouldn't really say friends. Compatriots would probably be a better term, but for lack of a better comparison, I guess you could say it's kind of like military friendship, where you might not actually consider yourself true friends at first, but as time goes on, you become more like true friends. But along the way, you're friendly with one another because you have to be because of your job. So that's the best comparison I can think of. I mean, they're not as friendly they're not as friendly with each other as the Marines and aliens, excuse me, but I think you get the idea. The creature effects, it's a two-part thing. The practical effects have aged pretty well. One, because of the way they were shot. Some of them are in shadow, some of them are in light, but just the way that they look. And two, because they were designed by H.R. Giger himself. So you know they're going to look good. Now they're not as groundbreaking as the designs for Alien, but they still look pretty good. I mean, some of them has a little bit of a callback there, but with difference. These ones are more reptilian in nature, which fits. But the effects that really haven't aged well are the CGI effects, which is mostly near the end. I mean, some of the transitions at earlier points in the film, you can tell it's early CGI, but they've aged a little well. Like when Syl has to heal her thumb and other injuries, those ones have aged pretty well because they're more subtle uses of CGI, which is how it should be used in movies like this. For stuff that'd be kind of hard to do practically, or you couldn't do practically. You could probably regrow a thumb practically, but not in the way that Syl is described as regrowing her thumb. The back thing you probably could, but it'd be a lot more effective to do it with CGI because it'd be a lot more subtle, at least with how it is used in the film. It's a lot more subtle. Some of the other stuff early on I can't really tell because of the lighting if it's CGI or practical or a bit of both, like when Syl's having the dreams and the things come out of her back. Now her transformation scenes, it's obviously there's some CGI use, but it doesn't really look that bad because it's subtle and also some of the lighting. Now, when we see Syl full on at the climax of the film, it's in CGI, and boy, does it look dated. Not as dated as the Devil Malbosia in the Spawn movie, but a little bit above that. It's like they couldn't, for a couple of these shots, they couldn't use a suit and then add some CGI for some of the stuff to amplify some of the stuff. But no, they had to use CGI for all of it. And the thing that really looks the worst is Syl's offspring. For the brief moment you see him, that looks like 90s video game. That's how weird the CGI looks. So it's very a Clash thing. But it's mostly near the end and it doesn't really kill the film, but it really does make the film seem more like a big budgeted B movie. If you thought the rest of it made it feel this way, the CGI at the end kind of really does nail home. It's like, oh yeah, but it's a bigger budget one. It's not like Alien where it started with the script wise where it could have just been a B movie, but the fact that you had a director who was an A-level director directing it and casting it, it rose it to the A status. Same thing with RoboCop, among probably a dozen other movies I could probably name, but with this, that really doesn't make it feel weird. I'd say it's probably a B plus B movie because of the fact you got ensemble cast of big names. Some of them would become bigger after this, but Ben Kingsley was probably the biggest name in, at least from the acting department at the time this film was made. I don't remember off the top of my head how big Michael Madsen was at this time, but this was just after Reservoir Dogs, so obviously he had a little bit of a name thing there. Earlier I mentioned H.R. Giger. Other than contributing to the monster effects, he actually saved one scene in the movie, and that's the Nightmare Train scene. Because MGM did not want to front the money to film it, but he's like, no, we have to film the scene. So he put up $100,000 of his own money, and the scene was filmed. One change to the original draft of the script was that originally, when Syl escaped, she was to kill a friendly, cab driver. But if you think about it, this makes Syl seem a little too vicious early on. I mean, everybody she hurts as a kid usually is in self-defense, other than when she's going into the cocoon. So it makes her seem a little too vicious. That's why they switched it for what we have in the final film, her attacking a hobo who attacks her first. It makes her killing of the lady on the train a lot more unexpected, and you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Well, you are kind of expecting it, but it's still a little, surprising. You're like, she went from this nice girl to being all ruthless. What can happen now? Now, overall, it is an enjoyable film. Definitely deserves the label time waster. It's a film I do enjoy watching. Not one I will watch very often, though. It's one of those films I really have to be in the mood to watch. Now, did it really deserve to be a series? Probably not, but it produced 3 sequels. Species 2, which I have the DVD for as well, Species 3, which I've never seen, and then fourth film, which apparently has really no connection from what I understand, which that one probably shouldn't have been made, but you can make the argument that none of the sequels should have been made. Would have been good as a standalone film, even though the last part of its ending really does scream as sequel bait. And funny enough, at least the first sequel never mentions it. Anyway, if I were to give this film a rating, I would give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's an enjoyable, big-budget B-movie. Maybe another draft could have fleshed out some of the stuff a little bit more, but for what it is an enjoyable film. It moves at a pretty good pace. The cast is likable. The special effects, at least the practical ones, still hold up. The CGI, like I said earlier, is shoddy at most of the parts. The subtle parts still look a little good. The cinematography, I thought, was pretty good. The score works for the film. Nothing really that I remember. It's not like the score for Alien or Aliens, where you remember the main theme or at least one of the important themes. Would I get my recommendation? If you're a fan of B movies or sci-fi films that involve aliens, definitely worth at least one watch.